Will Tesla's decision to purchase batteries from CATL, a Chinese manufacturer, and LG destroy the company because of patent issues? This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to note that we're appreciative of our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. So we also wanted to note that right now we're operating on pretty much one show a day, but starting every Sunday, and this being our first Sunday, tomorrow, the 2nd of February, we'll actually be offering a show exclusively to Patreon supporters. And I wanted to note that this will be an ongoing process of sort of offering benefits to the Patreon supporters, and we really appreciate your doing so. Our first show tomorrow will focus on the impact of Tesla being included in the S&P and how to manage your investing/trading relative to that. So we look forward to that. I also wanted to note that we do have different tiers within our Patreon, and you're welcome to enter at the $1 or $2 level if that's the best you can do. But those resources really help us to modify and improve what we're doing as an organization, and also to sort of add staff. So today's focus is on batteries. What is happening is that I've sort of been preparing for this show for like 6 months, maybe 8. And the reason I say that is that once Tesla started the build of the factory in China, this is perhaps the most often commented on issue by anyone on our channel, namely the fact that if Tesla does choose to go to China, you run into huge problems potentially with the competitive threat of having the Chinese replicate everything you're doing, including your batteries. And then now you have a very difficult competitive situation. So we bring this up because the logic of that seems pretty sound in terms of, why open up, particularly with battery production, in a place where you potentially have competitors replicating everything you're doing, and now this becomes a potentially huge disaster for you and your company. So I think that's an excellent question, and that's the question we're focused on answering today. So the first part of that answer is that there are two companies. One is CATL, one is LG. It was indicated that Nanjing, which is 3 hours to the north and west of the Shanghai plant, is where LG's factory is currently, and the sourcing point for the cells that will be produced by LG for Tesla. As we shared in our previous show, this contract was signed middle of last year. So I think that it's highly likely that they'll start getting scale batteries once they've opened up, because that's a good 7 months of prep time for the two companies to work out how the working relationship is going to work. The next thing that we wanted to review is in the case of CATL, they're actually approximately, I believe it's about, we looked it up on the map. I haven't been there. It's about, it said it's a plane flight, so it's an 8-hour drive. So theoretically, it's 500 miles to the south. But the beauty of where the headquarters of CATL is that it's right on the water. So if you want to inexpensively move goods into the factory, it will be, I think, a very usable, viable location in and out for finished goods, because you can go road or water without any issues, and the water is the least costly way to move goods. Once I heard about this agreement, I was really worried, as was consistent with our viewers, about what was going to happen with this. Namely, Tesla has spent a lot of money on R&D at its Canada R&D facility and on site on batteries. They've been sharing that battery research with Panasonic, and the question that's kind of hanging over everything is what happens when they share that battery research with CATL and LG, and then now you have CATL and LG are probably servicing 70% of the batteries that are not BYD in the world to competitors. So you have this problem where how do you deal with your competitors sort of riding with your key supplier, and so this is where the problem can show up. So we kind of got new information that I was thrilled about. We have a technical advisor. His name is Lyman Taylor. He's a good buddy of mine who's a PhD from Georgia Tech, but I call him a MITFID or MIT PhD because he did his undergrad at MIT. So we had a conversation about this yesterday, and he dropped some new information that I really thought was awesome. What that information is that there's a reason why Tesla has chosen to source batteries from these two companies. Obviously, it's a lower cost situation because particularly CATL is sourcing from Chinese sources when it comes to the metal that surrounds the cells, etc. And that's a lower cost situation. So one of the targets of Tesla, as Elon pointed out, was to cut in half the overall cost of car production. So what Lemon pointed out is, number one, in order to be competitive in the Chinese market, there are way more buyers, $5,000 to $10,000 lower than where the car price is currently. And so for Tesla to get down to the sweet spot of that market, they've got to find a way to lower their overall costs across the board. And this is one way they can achieve that. The second thing he pointed out is that Tesla is doing kind of a good job of sort of tiering the quality of vehicles and their prices. So what this means is that one of the things that I've been watching for the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years is, would customers revolt at the way in which Tesla handles the tiering of the vehicles that are offered? So in the good old days of 5 years ago, there used to be a thing where if you paid for an S-Class Mercedes, you really you want performance and look and size to be way better than a Mercedes that's like 10, 20, 30 grand less. And so one of the things you'll notice about Tesla is that the Model S has a range starting of, there's a 75K or something in a 60 to 75K on the bottom end is what Tesla started with, all the way up to a fully loaded $150,000 vehicle. So you'll notice that most manufacturers tend not to run the same vehicle, at least the same exterior body of a vehicle, over that wide a price range because customers expect some tiering. So when the Model 3 came out, it really helped in the process of Tesla tiering away from the sort of their version of the S-Class or the Model S. They were able to tier down to the Model 3 so that those buying the Model S are distinctively different than product being offered more cheaply in the form of the Model 3. And so as we look at the Model 3, the top of the line performance model is up in that fully loaded, high 70s, and then you're down to the $35,000 car when it comes to the intro vehicle. So you kind of have a situation emerging where how thrilled are the $70,000 buyer of the cars when you have people driving what looks like your car for $35K. Obviously, there's an exception in terms of the badging and rubber, and so you really don't get the full brunt of having spent all that money, at least visually. One of the secrets that I learned as an auto rider is that when it comes to speed and enjoying speed and performance on the road, one of the rules of thumb is that your ability to enjoy your speed and performance is directly reverse proportional to how fast your car looks. So what this kind of means is that if you're driving a souped up Mercedes that kind of looks like a lot of other Mercedes, your opportunity to speed more without tickets is greater than if you're doing a souped up Ferrari or one of the other cars, because the color and all the aspects of that vehicle attracts a lot of attention, particularly attention from the police. And so this kind of screws up your ability to speed, because everybody, including the police, is watching your vehicle. So one of the deceptive portions of owning a Tesla is the fact that because you can't immediately see the badging, even as a police officer, those that are in the performance version of those cars can exploit that performance because so many of them look alike. So it's a weird paradox that to some extent Tesla is getting away with this, where you might not find people willing to do so with other vehicles. The next thing I wanted to look at here is something I call supply chain choke off. And what I mean by that is that, so one of the drawbacks of Tesla having supply from LG and CATL is the potential for competitors to start sourcing similar products from those companies for their own use. And so one of the other challenges that's going on right now is articulated by the fact that Mercedes pointed out that they were short on supply of their EQC because of their inability to get enough battery packs from LG. So we were kind of fascinated by this because there's a phenomenon that Tesla has somewhat been subject to and is part of the secretiveness of the company. And I actually think it's funny that everybody keeps pointing how Battery Day is going to be this, that, or the other. And I'm anticipating Battery Day to be a fun event, things to learn, but I think it's going to be a pseudo dud, not a complete dud, a pseudo dud. And what I mean by that is that right now, one of the choke points in the entire industry is, one, not if you can get battery, but can you get battery at scale? And so the answer is that Mercedes, maybe the biggest, one of the most important companies in the world, is having problem with supplies. Toyota, the biggest company in the world, is having a problem with supplies. Tesla is having problems with supplies. So everyone is having battery supply challenges in terms of getting enough batteries to build the vehicles they want. So what's fascinating here is to have Tesla step into CATL as well as to LG creates an interesting problem, because people who had plans to source batteries from these entities now face the prospect of Tesla getting source or batteries from these entities as well. And so Tesla, because of its presence and its ability to become perhaps, not for sure, the largest customer of both companies because of their volume, potentially squeezes other firms trying to get access to scale batteries. So off the back end, there's an element of this that suggests that Tesla could actually benefit by choking out competitors who simply don't have their own battery plant to build out of, or don't have enough that they can order in the open market so they can actually build cars at scale. And sidebar note on this, everybody keeps talking about Rivian and how they're going to kick butt, et cetera, et cetera. I'm intrigued by Rivian because I haven't heard of them building a factory yet, but to build batteries, but they did hook up with Ford, and the 100,000 vehicles that have been ordered by Amazon are great. The challenge, though, is what I'm trying to figure out is, given the large competitors that they're facing to get to batteries, how in the world are they going to sort of beat back VW, Daimler, BMW, all these different companies? Another benefit of the CATL LG hookup is that it turns out that CATL is currently building a factory about 3 hours south of Berlin in Germany. And so I believe LG has at least one, if not two, battery factories being built in Eastern Europe. I believe Poland is one of the locations. And so you have this situation emerging where can you get batteries? Can you get, which everybody can, because you can get a few of them to build test runs of cars or a small group of vehicles you might try to sell. But the question is, can you get scale batteries so that as you enter the space to be competitive with Tesla and others, you have enough electric vehicles to compete. And so the answer is that we don't see how anybody is getting more than 50,000 cars worth of batteries in the next 3 or 4 years until some of the large factories that are being built are completed. So this is an aspect of things that obviously we'll keep track of and keep watch over. So the other thing that's occurring right now in the tiering process we talked about is the fact that by Tesla electing to now source batteries in China for the low end of their line, it allows them to reserve batteries coming and packs coming from Fremont / the Giga 1 space. Those batteries will be reserved sort of for the high line of vehicles as it goes across the world. So the other sort of thing that's sneaking in here is that there's a concept in business called single point of failure. One of the issues here is that if you have only one place where you produce, be it your batteries or your cars, and there's an earthquake in Silicon Valley or something blows up at your primary plant in Reno, you now have a second source that could actually theoretically fill in the gap until you fix whatever the problem might have been, small or large. So you're kind of eliminating that single point of failure issue that might pop up as well. By the way, my error, just wanted to note, this is a 2016 October look inside of the the Reno Gigafactory build, and it's still open, so it's kind of cool to be able to see inside and the number, you can take a look at the number of floors, etc. So it's an interesting circumstance. So what we want to get back to is just the fact that, there's a lot of actually really good elements to Tesla not having a sole source anymore on the batteries, and they can offer perhaps a higher line of cars. So all of the cars on the higher end, be it SX and Model 3s that are coming out of Fremont and going to China, will have batteries that are coming out of Gigafactory 1 / the Fremont plant. So you're preserving most of your advanced technology. And so while you're getting batteries in, you're not necessarily handing over the keys to the kingdom in this manner. One of the arguments against this might be the fact that, what we deduced is that if you're getting battery cells from domestic suppliers, you can still run automated lines inside the battery plant to sort of put together the packs in an automated fashion, as well as attaching the thermal management system to that before those packs go into the car. So the logic actually hangs together, I think, pretty well. We're actually looking forward to comments that you guys might have about this. So to some extent, you could argue that Tesla's move that they're doing currently sort of chokes out the supply chain to competitors, like Daimler and these other big firms that have to figure out how to get the scale on their batteries to be Tesla competitive. I think that I still am uncomfortable with the fact that Tesla has chosen to not just increase the Panasonic cell count and just supply all the batteries and let the rest of the car be built around the world. But you have a nice situation here where you've built up a secondary source of supply. When they're negotiating with Panasonic for price or some other things, you have the potential now for Tesla to look at their cost basis from elsewhere against what's going on here. One of the other things that I was stunned by, is what I call the Tesla the Tesla death competition. So a lot of people got excited when Tesla announced that it was going to put a design center in Germany and as well as in Beijing. And I think it's good that they're doing it. It's because they're trying to source local knowledge and capabilities when it comes to cars that they might build. One of the challenges that pops up, though, is the fact that Tesla's sort of business philosophy on the design side of cars is, I want to call it the Thunderdome process, where you have two go in, but only one comes out. So in the case of the Model S, they identified 4 different entities to design that car, paid all 4 of them, and chose one of them. It's our belief that the winner was Pininfarina out of Italy. And so I just think it's interesting because what we see happening is a similar deal when it comes to the batteries. By having CATL and LG sort of compete to demonstrate quality and capability, whoever wins that competition sort of gets the most business. And you sort of eliminate challenges related to, it's highly common for people to have quality control issues when it comes to China. And by having that second source, you don't have to worry about sort of missing deliveries based on having 2 entities who are sort of competing for the business. And that, I think, improves the quality of execution. The other thing that that comes to mind is the fact that you also potentially end up in a competitive situation between Panasonic and these other firms, because yes, Panasonic is the leader. They're doing a great job. Tesla has revealed to them things to them, and probably will more, that regarding research and development that they have not and won't reveal to other competitors like LG and CATL. And so they can sort of segment the nature of batteries, quality, and other characteristics across the globe. And I think that's a great situation. You also have a situation going on where, because CATL is building in Germany and LG is building in Eastern Europe close by, you have that competitive potential there for who's going to supply batteries to the new German factory. So there's a lot of, I want to say, good core logic to what's going on, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable to have competitors closing the gap on who you are. Great. Thank you, Nova, for the comment regarding mic challenges. We're definitely working on those. We have a new mic that'll be in place by tomorrow, so we will definitely address that. At any rate, I quickly glanced and saw we're at the point now. We're at the point now we usually take questions and answers. I usually try to avoid looking at what you guys are saying so I can focus on material. I just wanted to note that I did see the question of why is it that Panasonic is not scaling. The answer that Panasonic gave, sort of between the lines, was that the agreement that they have going with Tesla is that basically if there's any overages, they're eaten by Panasonic. So Tesla was light on cash, and therefore they really were in a we pay for what we eat, and we're not giving you any huge long-term orders that we will stand by. And so what's happened is, instead of trying to push the envelope on volume, Panasonic has elected to be slow to the increase, because they face the prospect of being bankrupted by huge orders that go unsold. The head of Panasonic in Reno articulated that now that the Y is arriving and they had a chance to look at that order book, they're comfortable with having increased the size and headcount of the facility to facilitate growth in sales. So we think that while the numbers clearly are not where everybody wants them to be, particularly Tesla, I think you'll find that the productive capacity will increase nicely to embrace what the Model Y represents. So so at any rate, I hope that answers the question that was posed. It says, do you think they'll continue working with Panasonic whilst producing their own cells? I think it's a great question. I have to say I'm very confused right now, because Tesla is doing all that research in Canada. They've hired a bunch of people. It looks to me that Tesla is doing a routine where they have their own research facility where they're producing very, very small counts of cells. And then they are working with their research unit at the university in Canada to sort of refine those cells and see how and where they're going to put it into production. And so I was actually stunned in the case of China that Tesla wasn't building its own cells because, I mean, they definitely know, what the raw materials are that go into Panasonic's facilities. I just think that it doesn't make sense to me. Carlo asked a question, can you reverse engineer the battery? Carlo, the answer is yes. The battery is not that big a deal, and it's already been reverse engineered according to Samsung. So that's not an issue in terms of that reverse. The big issue, though, is reverse engineering of the software that drives the thermal management system is sort of the secret sauce that's driving Tesla's success. So the thesis of our show was, is Tesla in trouble because of bringing batteries in from China? And the answer is, in theory, it's possible. But the reality is that Tesla isn't giving away anything new because they're simply buying cells from others and baking them in for the low-end vehicles that they're producing in China. So, I think it really creates a buffer of success where you have limitations on competitive exposure that you might have in China. The last question I think I'll answer here is just what happens in a market severe downturn. What tends to happen when the market drops, and the way things are going with the virus, if we don't hear any more good news, is that we expect a 1,000 or 2,000, maybe even 3,000 point drop in the market over the next 5 to 10 business days. What tends to happen is the companies with the highest PE ratios tend to take the biggest hit in the short term. And then what happens afterwards is everybody's like, okay, if everything is okay now, we can go back to where we were before, and you'll see those companies start running up again. So that's actually a quite valid question because the virus situation definitely seems to be challenging. I would also like to say that I was initially very disappointed in the U.S. government's response to the virus, in which they were allowing people to enter the country, go home, and then get their family members sick and potentially everybody in their building sick. And so the fact that the quarantining is going on now and they're carefully managing inbound passengers, I think is wise because if you can control the exposure you have here now and tamp it out, you can get a good management process going. But hopefully the folks that have been allowed in without screening that do get sick, you can sort of manage that well before it creates a much larger problem. So, I'm hopeful that, in essence, America cops a clue because from what I'd seen until yesterday, there didn't seem to be a sort of clear, well thought out plan on how to manage. At any rate, just a reminder, on Sunday tomorrow, we'll be doing a show exclusively for those who are on the Patreon. You can do as little as $1 and be a part of that. What will happen is we'll shoot our show and then send a link over to those who are supporters in that space. And I think you'll find the quality of information excellent. And we look forward to getting that done and over to those supporters. And if you'd like to join that group, please, our information is at the bottom in terms of our Patreon supporter area. We do have the lowest bracket is $5, but if you want to come in at $1 or $2 a month, you still qualify in that regard. At any rate, I think that's about it for today for us. Thank you for joining. We'll field any other questions that we didn't pick up during the show afterwards. Please take time to like and subscribe, and also remember us on Patreon. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Don't forget, don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating. Avoids acid reflux best for. Try one of the fasting diets like the 5-2 for better mental health. Number 3 is 25 leg lifts a day, strengthens the quad muscles. And I think, you'll notice a big difference in the strength of your legs and ability to move around comfortably as a result. And then, is it? Okay. We'll do a little bit less gain again because that has been articulated as an issue. Thank you for the comment regarding the gain. Any rate, it's a huge deal. The numbers from the Chinese government are way too low. Sam is a doctor, and it's always fun to get commentary from folks who are in the medical field on stuff like this. Any rate, I want to thank you all for taking time to join us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, lehitrot, Hebrew, choda hafez, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, ni hao ma. Wow. A lot of Chinese folks are saying the severity is way higher than they're divulging. And I think that the fact that you're building huge hospitals in the process of getting this done shows that the numbers of people is bigger than they've stated, and the moves that are being made that make sense. Any rate, want to again thank you for joining us. Do Virginia and Hedge Do. And in Jamaica, we say, "Enough respect, walk good man." Thanks again for joining us, and have a great day.